Welcome to the GAVIN Fi Podcast, created and hosted by the GAVIN Financial Services PR team. GAVIN is a national brand communications agency that specializes in public relations and digital marketing for financial services clients. I'm Sophie Hanneken, your host. Each episode, we collaborate with industry leaders, media professionals, and other interesting voices with unique perspectives to explore the crossroads between public relations and financial services. On today's episode, we are excited to be joined by Hardika Singh, Vice President of Market Intelligence and Economic Strategist at Fundstrat Global Advisors. Thank you for joining us.
So excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so can you share some details about your role at Fundstrat Global Advisors?
Yeah, of course. So I'm an economic strategist, and a really big part of my job is to provide thought leadership. And what that means is basically reading and writing a lot of notes and just using those to amplify and better our already present research. So that is one big role of the job. And it's kind of really fun in that way because I get to spend most of my day just reading and writing. And isn't that everyone's dream at the end of the day? So that's really fun. And another part about my job that I really enjoy doing is media appearances, such as this one. So I get to go talk to press people. I get to do fun podcasts like this. And yeah, that's kind of a little bit about my job.
Yeah, that's great. I love reading and writing, so that's really exciting that that's part of your daily job. So today we're going to dive into the evolving world of financial journalism, from the newsroom to macro market analysis. We'll explore Hardika's journey covering the markets for the Wall Street Journal, how economic uncertainty can shape media coverage, and storytelling beyond the newsroom. So you were on the markets team at the Wall Street Journal for more than 3 years. How did that opportunity come about for you? And what did you take away from that experience?
I will preface this by saying that I didn't go to school to study journalism with the idea of becoming a financial journalist. It just happened. I stumbled across it. I realized when I was in school that there's actually not a lot of journalism jobs out there, which is something I should have really thought of before I decided to spend 4 years studying it. But I was very young, and I decided that there's tons of jobs in business journalism. Maybe I should try my hand there. So I found this internship at Bloomberg. I got in, and I was an equities reporter over the summer of 2020. And I was just having a lot of fun reading and learning more about, how the stock market works, what is a price target, what are analysts, for example. And somehow I was able to leverage that into getting another internship after my school ended at the Wall Street Journal this time, which was super cool because, you go get your hair cut and you tell them, hey, I work for the Wall Street Journal. It's suddenly a conversation about the economy and why haircut prices are so expensive. It was always such a flex. So it was a really cool opportunity. And I was very lucky that, they invited me and they offered me basically a full-time role on the same team. So I got to cover the same thing after my internship. It was a lot of fun. I did that for 3 years and I just really got to learn the ins and outs of journalism.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Finance really does bleed into every facet of life. So it's a huge conversation starter for sure. Was there a particular moment working for the Wall Street Journal that shaped your perspective on the markets or reporting as a whole?
Yeah. So I think that when I was at the Wall Street Journal, I realized that retail investors actually don't get a lot of love, especially over the past 5 years, because we've seen this huge mania of retail investors coming into the market, and they've been very, very consequential, right? They've moved the markets in a way that we're probably never going back to it, So they don't get a lot of love. And I was writing a story about how to invest in the bull market. And I was citing retail investors for that. I was citing how they're going about it. And after I spoke with them, I realized, hold on, these are actually really smart people. They actually know what they're doing, and they possibly know more than I do, which is also, like a scary realization as a reporter covering markets. And I think that was because they actually are able to invest in the market on a regular basis, whereas I, as a reporter at the Wall Street Journal, had a lot of restrictions about it. We cannot own individual securities, especially the ones we're reporting on. So restricted to holding only broad-based index funds. We don't do shorting, don't do options and all these things. After having a conversation with them, I was like, wow, not only are they possibly richer than I am, but really, really smart. So it kind of gave me this whole new perspective on retail investors, and it changed the way I perceive them in the stock market. They're big players and they shouldn't be ignored.
Yeah, that's really eye-opening for sure. As you've mentioned, you've taken on a new role that focuses more on macroeconomic trends. Can you share with us what led to your desire to shift gears there?
Yeah, there was the obvious reason. I had already done the same job for 3 years now. Once you do something long enough, you tend to get bored of it. I had been on the same team. I was covering the same beat. And when I was trying to decide, what's next for my career, I realized that there's no other beat that I want to be writing about. I only want to do markets, and it made me realize that being a journalist isn't the most primary thing for me. I really wanted to be in finance, and that was my main love for me. So once I realized that, I decided to, take the CFA Level 1 test. But really, the whole reason why I took that test was to show prospective employers that I'm very serious about finance and pursuing a career in finance. And you don't take the CFA unless you're up with that kind of, trauma.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's so interesting that you went to school for journalism and you didn't really have an interest in finance until you started reporting on financial services. And then you found your passion through it. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Nobody told me that jobs like this existed growing up. So I shifted because I just wanted to do more finance, and it was just love at first sight. Once you fall in love with something, you can't unlove it.
So true. Are there any particular skills or habits that you've developed during your time with the Wall Street Journal that you still rely on?
Yeah, I think the biggest skill I learned there was, number one, how to write. Because, I studied journalism. But when you're becoming a journalist, you learn how to write things in a very formulaic, structural way. You just follow this 5-step formula and you try to meet all those marks, and that's it. You don't try to go above and beyond unless you are trying to be an investigative reporter. But if you're just your regular stories, you're just trying to get the story out there as soon as possible. But I had the flexibility at the Wall Street Journal to slow down and write stories in a way that made them really big, really ambitious. And that was one of the biggest things I learned, how to write big things. And that was one aspect of it. Another was I see a factoid and I draw conclusions from it. And sometimes I've realized a lot of people don't draw conclusions from factoids and data points. They just say the data points, and sure, they might be very, very good data points. But unless you're able to explain what's so important about that data point, it's kind of useless, right? So I think that was another one really big skill. And when I was starting out at the Wall Street Journal, it was really challenging because I didn't know these topics. So how am I going to draw conclusions from these topics? That is a huge step up. So I think my editors were really, really patient with me as they taught me how to read, write, basically everything from the bottom up. And I think that's still the biggest skill, knowing how to draw conclusions and how to write about them in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a huge skill, very valuable to have. In your experience, how has financial news coverage evolved over the last few years, especially with the recent economic uncertainty that we've seen?
One day I'll write a story and then the next day it'll be completely different. And I've noticed that other people are doing the same. We're all struggling to keep up with what's happening. It's it's here, it's there, it's here, it's here. It's tech stocks are everything. And then the next day, tech stocks are the reason and they're going to be the cause of our doom. It's like flip-flopping narrative. It's very, very hard to keep a track of. And I think that has been something that, I've struggled with. I struggled with last year too. I know other reporters do as well. But I think that that's how, one way that financial coverage is really evolving. People are trying to do less of the smaller things, less of the day-to-day, so that leaves room for the bigger takeaways. So instead of, doing stories that tech stocks are up, tech stocks are down, you just do a big story over the month that tech stocks are doing this, and this is signaling about the economy, a big takeaway of sorts, instead of just constantly trying to chase the next news cycle.
How do reporters decide what economic stories are worth telling? And is the complexity of the topics ever a challenge for you, or was it while you were with the Wall Street Journal?
It really has to do with the human factor of it. It has to be about real people, right? Nobody, and I mean nobody wants to read a story about communication services sector rose 0.0035%. No one cares about any of that. I think people care to read about people and what they're doing. So I always try to start my stories by saying investors are betting that tech stocks will go up. Investors are worried that everything's going to go crash in the economy. And that really makes a big difference in the way you perceive a story. I think that you want to get the real people aspect of it, but it's also that when it's challenging to cover a story, it's the real people who can break it down, not AI or not, something you can Google, not a book. You have to go talk to an expert because chances are the topic that you're covering hasn't happened before. If it has happened, how would I know about it? Because AI is not going to care about something really random happening in 1985. So you have to talk to real people to really get the mood of that year, especially in markets when we think so much about what happened when there was the last rate cutting cycle or the last rate hiking cycle. It's so much easier to talk to people who were present at that time and look at them and hear their feelings about that and use that to guide what's happening in our economy right now. So much more easier to perceive it that way.
Yeah. The human element is definitely the essence of storytelling for sure. As someone who has experience writing stories on the market and now shares research with reporters covering the markets, you're featured in those articles. You're on the other side now. What advice would you give to those looking to improve how they communicate on complex financial topics?
It's so hard, right? Because we're also learning a lot of these topics and they're complex. It's hard to make a sense of a lot of the times. I think that the best piece of advice I can give is as you're figuring it out, stop giving value to the opinion of unintelligent people. Not everybody's opinion matters. And I think once you start thinking about that, it makes life so much easier because you're not constantly bogged down by people who don't read about the economy, who don't spend any of their time understanding how the economy works. Just go on Facebook and scroll what their friends said, and boom, that's my opinion of the economy. Stop caring about those people. You should obviously care about the opinion of good critique, but that's what you should care about, not unintelligent people. For example, everybody's always worried about valuations, right? Stocks are overvalued, you shouldn't buy them. But if you look at how stocks have performed recently, clearly it hasn't weighed on them. So it's okay, you can keep applying this really old principle to stocks, but it hasn't worked out in the past 5 years. I don't know why you think this would suddenly matter now. People who view the world in a very, very narrow frame, we shouldn't care so much about that.
Yes, that's a great point. Connecting back to your area of expertise to end, what's one macro trend that you think is underreported right now?
Retail investors are just so important. I think that everybody underestimates them. Over the past year, for me, it has completely changed. I think that retail investors are some of the smartest people out there, and it is not their fault that they are only able to read, news publications which cover a topic after it has happened, making them late to the cycle. It's not their fault. They don't have access to institutional research. So I think that that's one of the topics that I think we as reporters and strategists and investors, we all really need to focus on, these market people. We need to start thinking about these retail investors because they're moving markets right now.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Hardika, for joining us. How can our listeners get in touch with you or hear more from you?
I am at Hardika Invests at fundstrat.com. Or you can also follow me on TikTok and LinkedIn with my name. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm a finfluencer now, or trying to be. So yeah, follow me on TikTok.
I love that. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Be sure to sign up for our quarterly GAVIN Fi newsletter at evolving-influence.com/GAVIN Fi for more insights, curated stories, and agency resources to help you explore the latest marketing strategies and industry trends. For more episodes of the GAVIN Fi podcast, visit our YouTube channel, Gavin Advertising York. To get in touch with us, email us at gavinfi@gavinadv.com. Thanks for listening to the GAVIN Fi podcast. New episodes drop every quarter, so stay tuned for the next one.